There are few common household items quite as horrifying as the refrigerator. Some doors should never be opened, but today we're going to take a peek at some of gaming's most chilling refrigerators. Did you like that? Chilling? What makes these food tombs so scary and so prominent in gaming? The scene that spawned this entire video came from the PS1 game Galerians. In the game, there's a scene where a missing woman's body comes tumbling out of a refrigerator. This game came out in 1999, and curiously, this was a crazy year for bodies stuffed into fridges. In the same year, fridging, or stuffed into the fridge, was popularized as a term in comics, movies, and games. This is due to the comic artist Gail Simone's website Women in Refrigerators, wherein she observes the trend that female characters in comics are sometimes disproportionately killed off or maimed just to affect a protagonist. The term is referred to as fridging because in the comic Green Lantern: A New Dawn, the Green Lantern's girlfriend is brutalized, murdered, and stuffed into a refrigerator. The killer leaves a note saying that there was a surprise for him waiting in the fridge. This website is still up, by the way, and it's very 90s looking, which means it's cool. Of course, video games are not the medium that popularized scary fridges, as that trope is seen in movies and comics since before games were even popular. However, the examples we see in video games are not only the most interesting to me, they are also the scariest. I think it's safe to say that most of us have some smells stored away in our memory banks associated with nasty, goopy fridge content. Perhaps some leftovers you weren't particularly thrilled about eating just kept getting pushed further and further back on the fridge shelf until one day you realized it was completely putrid. When a game like Resident Evil 7 presents you with a, Resident Evil 7 kitchen, you can almost physically smell it. It's disgusting, but also kind of familiar in an unfortunate way. If you can recall how foul that leftover Chinese food in the back of the fridge smelled that one time, you can really appreciate just how rancid this is. Or this. Or this. Resident Evil has a lot of disgusting fridges. Control is a game that really runs with the absurdity of turning something like a refrigerator into something horrific. We come across a character named Philip who is locked inside of a room with a fridge. Philip says that the fridge has to be watched at all times and that he's been staring at it for over 24 hours straight with no blinking and no breaks.
Please hurry! My eyes! They can't!
The refrigerator room is completely locked up, so we have to go and get the door opened by someone with the clearance to do so.
There's someone named Philip up in a cell. He's watching a refrigerator and very rapidly losing it.
Philip? Oh shit, I forgot about fridge duty. He's been in there for over a day, I totally forgot.
You forgot about him?
There's a lot going on. But Philip can't just leave. The fridge is behaving erratically. Ocular contact is the only thing that seems to placate it. If we don't have someone in there watching it 24/7, people will die.
Alright, well, no problem. We'll just go grab Philip and trade him out with someone else so he can have a well-deserved break.
Hello? Jesse?
I'm back. I'm coming in.
Hey, Jesse? The fridge is doing something!
Philip? If I look away, it hurts me.
Whoops. It appears that the fridge ate Philip. I really enjoyed this scary fridge bit. It somehow manages to both be unsettling and quite funny at the same time.
Poor Philip. He never did like fridge duty.
Funnily enough, there's another horror game I can think of off the top of my head where the fridge is aggressive. In Silent Hill 1, you do not eat out of fridge. Fridge eats you. I mostly bring up Silent Hill 1 because it's a good segue into the next horror trope with the word fridge in its title. Fridge horror is when something from a movie you've watched or a game you've played becomes more and more disturbing after the fact. The full impact of just how terrifying something is doesn't hit you immediately all at once right when it happens. It's put in the fridge for later, so to speak. Nurse monsters are pretty much a mascot for Silent Hill at this point, and we meet them for the first time in Silent Hill 1. They're pretty scary the first time you see them, but it doesn't really hit you until later just how disturbing they actually are in the story. You see, this game establishes that they are actual people that were twisted and morphed into monsters. In other games, they're just manifestations, but in one, they're real people. They didn't really do anything wrong, and you killed them.
They looked like monsters to you?
Some people also like to describe fridge horror as when you get up to take a break from your game, you go to the fridge to grab a snack, and while you stand there staring into your fridge, you think about the plot a little harder and bam! That's when it hits you. Fridge horror is a really cool trope, and it happens in all types of media. If you can think of a really good example of this, let me know in the comments. But wait, there's more. Silent Hill is the series that just keeps giving us refrigerator content. In Silent Hill 2, there's a scene that scares James in the most hurtful way of all, having to ask someone for help to open something that should be easy to open. You know, like a fridge door.
You can't open it?
Yeah, Maria, give me a hand here.
Come on. You're supposed to be the big man around here.
Maria really said, "James, you fucking loser." Terrifying, absolutely devastating hit to the ego. There's also these feet poking out of a fridge right before you meet Eddie. Haha, you yucky. Perhaps the most infamous of the Silent Hill fridges is from 4. When exploring the apartment area of the game, there's a little mini narrative about a neighbor whose cat has gone missing. Eventually, Henry, in his own apartment, opens up his fridge and finds the wriggling, bloody body of the cat. This is a reference to the movie Reanimator, where there is also an infamous scene of a dead cat in the fridge. This all just reminds me of that scene in The Office when Dwight takes care of Angela's cat but ends up killing it.
Actually, the place that she's in is the freezer because of the odor.
I'm sorry for including that one. The final Silent Hill fridge I'm going to bring up before moving on is from the short message. Throughout the game, the protagonist is haunted by a fridge with letters scrawled on it in blood. It says, "Don't you dare go outside." The main character's mother was extremely abusive and neglectful. It's heavily stated that she and her brother weren't well taken care of. The state of the house they were being raised in was hoarders level filth, and it's not very likely that the fridge was kept very full for them. The severe abuse leads to her brother's death, and the mother ends up hiding his body in the fridge. At first I thought the brother suffocated from being locked in the fridge, but that's not the case. However, fridges in real life are actually scary when it comes to that. No, really, kids dying in fridges used to be a huge problem. In a span of just 2 years back in the 1950s, 54 children were reported to have been trapped in refrigerators, and 39 of those children died. Fridges be lethal. Just look at these old murderous fridge PSAs.
Oh, here they come again. And I'm frightened because a child can become trapped in me and suffocate in 10 minutes. Children have such imaginations. To them, an abandoned refrigerator can be a jail in the Old West. If I must be stored, make me safe by one of the methods described in this free booklet. Make me safe so children can play safe.
Ollie, exit free! Hey, where's John?
What's all the excitement?
Wakanda! We can't find John. He was heading that way.
Oh no. Check that old refrigerator.
Thanks, Wakanda.
Remember, never get in anything that could close up and trap you.
Like an old trunk or an abandoned refrigerator. Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
Are you starting to believe me yet that refrigerators are terrifying? Maybe this video isn't so ridiculous, We'll move on from Silent Hill to PT. PT has the fridge that, in my opinion, is definitely the scariest. I know PT could just be put in the Silent Hill category, but PT is special. PT gets its own category. I love PT. I think that this scene is a really good example of taking an everyday inanimate household item and warping it into something truly horrifying.
After killing his family, the father hung himself with a garden hose in his garage.
Of course, there's an obvious implication that perhaps there could be a body in the fridge, but also, The character that does all of the murdering in PT is described as a heavy alcoholic. With this in mind, the fridge can become a symbol of his alcoholism. Anytime he wanted to fuel that addiction, he'd have to make a stop at the fridge. Now look, I know this sounds like I'm 14 and this is deep, but there was a time in my life where I was around a heavy alcoholic and I always knew what it meant when they'd get up to go to the fridge, and it would make me really anxious. So at least to me, I can see how even a common household object can have really negative associations, and whether it's intentional in PT's narrative or not, I think that that's pretty interesting. If the fridge in the short message can be viewed as a symbol of neglect and a lack of care, the fridge in PT can be viewed as a symbol of addiction and excess. Let me have this one. There's even a bunch of little random itch games about refrigerators literally just jump scaring you. The Evil Within once had a weird promo video where the developers hid a giant cockroach in a refrigerator just to fuck with people. And then they traumatized the entire comment section by throwing in a refrigerator jump scare right at the last second. Thank you, Evil Within team, we really needed that. Then there's this little indie horror game called The Fridge is Red. This is a really interesting game, but it's also a little insufferable to play, but that's beside the point. It's a story of grief, guilt, and loss. The game takes you on a disturbing journey through seemingly unconnected worlds. However, one thing is always present: the red refrigerator. This is a great game to wrap things up because it touches on almost all of the topics we've covered so far, twisting a comforting and normal part of our lives into something disturbing, making the connection that even mundane objects can become symbols in storytelling for things like addiction, being haunted by these symbols and what they represent, the absurdity of a refrigerator being viewed as something terrifying, and of course the actual real horror that fridges once wrought upon humanity. The final segment of The Fridge is Red shows us an alcoholic father that repairs refrigerators for a living. An old fridge is dropped off by a client for him to repair. He sits in front of the TV and gets drunk, he's having money problems, and his kid starts begging him to play hide and seek with him. You find her a couple times and she's usually hiding in someplace obvious like a cupboard. However, the final time you seek her out, you just can't find her anywhere, so you head to the basement.
Lori, where are you? Lori, are you here? No, 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 no.
It's really quite the dark story, and it's interesting that someone was able to make a touching horror game revolving around a refrigerator. There's certainly more spooky fridges in games and even more in comics and movies, but these video game fridges, they stick out to me the most. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to get up and go stare into my fridge and have an existential crisis about why I spent time making a video about this topic.
I wonder what it looks like in there now.
Remember, if you'd like to support the channel, check out the Ko-fi link below where you can leave a one-time tip or even sign up to support monthly if you feel extra generous. Also, come and stop by our Discord. We hold monthly contests, play games together, and talk about strange things.